Hello everybody, this is Angel Arts and welcome to 2022. I am here to give you all a channel update because it has been forever and a day since I've done one of these. It's been about 2 years, I think, almost. Not quite, but fairly close to 2 years, maybe more like 1.5 years since I've done one of these. And I figured now was a good time as any to take advantage of bringing in the new year to just talk about some of the things that are coming up for 2022. I know that obviously the last couple of years have been super rough on everyone, and the pandemic obviously has affected some people more than others. For some, it's definitely a bit of an annoyance or a morale drain or a burnout drain. And for others, it has had some more lasting effects on their family. My condolences to anyone who has been severely affected by this pandemic. But I don't want to spend an exorbitant amount of time on some of the obvious about things that are going on in the world, because I did want this video to be more focused on an escape, on some fun things like video games, among other things. Before I start talking about some of the video games that are upcoming that I am most interested in Let's Playing, I first wanted to start by talking about a major milestone for my channel. Believe it or not, 2022 will mark my 10-year anniversary. That's right, 10 years of YouTubing. My very first Let's Play was posted on March 6th of 2012, which was the release date of Mass Effect 3. And so I thought, I should do something, or some things, plural, to celebrate and commemorate 10 years of Let's Playing, tabletop campaigning, collaborations, reviews and analysis, and Let's Talks, and so many things that's happened. And of course, the invaluable friends and community that we've been able to build together over the course of 10 years. It is quite a long time. I'm putting out a request to all of you watching to please help brainstorm, send in some ideas for me on some things that I could do on my channel to celebrate the 10-year anniversary, because I definitely could use a lot of good ideas. There are tons and tons and tons of you out there who probably are smarter than me and more creative than me and have certainly better ideas than me on some things that we could do. So please, 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 any idea, big or small, again, it's a brainstorm session, so no idea is a bad idea. Feel free to post in the comments below your thoughts on what you think I should do to celebrate 10 years of YouTubing on my channel. So let's talk about some of the upcoming games that I am most looking forward to playing / Let's Play. Final Fantasy VII Remake Part 2. As many of you know, I am a gigantic Final Fantasy fan, especially during the 90s and early 2000s era of Final Fantasy. And Final Fantasy VII, for many people, is one of their favorites, if not their favorite of all Final Fantasy games of all time, or at least the gateway drug that got them into playing Final Fantasy games in the first place. And they did such a phenomenal job on the first part of the Final Fantasy VII Remake, because it is a ginormous game, even by today's standards. They broke up the original Final Fantasy VII into multiple parts, which I'm really glad that they did, because after playing the first part, I really loved how much time they spent. They didn't try to rush through everything. They really took their time and paced their way through that first part. So I'm looking forward to seeing what they do in part 2 and how exactly are they going to execute that. Are they going to, I'm assuming, load the save from your first part and putting it into the second part? I'm assuming. How does that work with the way that you leveled though? Like, I don't know. I'm very curious about that. So rumor has it that it is coming out in 2022. As of this recording, they're saying April 2022. I'm not holding my breath, because that, especially with things that are going around the world with the pandemic, development dates tend to get pushed a lot. So who knows, but that definitely is something that I am dying to sink my teeth into. The next game I wanted to talk about is a game that probably is not going to be coming out for a while, and by for a while, right now they're saying 2024. But I wanted to bring it up because it is a game that I have mentioned briefly on my channel in one of my top 10 videos that I put out a couple years ago. They are making a remake of the Knights of the Old Republic. This was technically my very first BioWare game before I even knew who BioWare was. And it is one of my top 10 favorite video games of all time. And the fact that they are doing a remake of it has me so excited. I'm really hoping that this is going to be one of those remakes that is done properly, that they do the original game justice, just like I felt that they did with that successfully with not only the Final Fantasy VII remake, but also the Resident Evil 2 remake. Just updated graphics, updated engine. I hope not secretly, this isn't a secret, I hope that they do make some tweaks to the game that allows it to be more representative of different players, because I am a player who enjoys doing quote-unquote gay Let's Plays. In the original Knights of the Old Republic, you could not have, it's a BioWare game, so romances are a thing that you could optionally do. There was no same-gender romances in this game. There was, a male straight romance and a female straight romance, and that was it. I'm hoping, now that some time has passed, that they could make a slight tweak to the original and allow for same-gender romances if we chose to. Because honestly, I don't think that really changes the overall plot or story at all. I don't think it does. If you're a male who happens to want to romance the male romanceable character, or if you're a female who wants to romance the female romanceable character. I absolutely fell in love with the male romanceable character in this game, who, by the way, is voiced by Raphael Sbarge, who also, of course, is the voice actor for Kaidan Alenko from the Mass Effect series. So I'm not sure if they're bringing back some of the original voice actors. That'd be fantastic if they did. I'm sure many people like Raphael Sbarge would do it and could do it extremely well. And if they do, whether they do or they don't, that is my biggest wish item. It might not be a big deal for the vast majority of players, but for someone like myself who is in a minority group, that is the LGBT, who would always welcome more representation in games, that would be a huge thing for me. But if they don't, looks like I'm rolling a female character for the Knights of the Old Republic remake, and that is perfectly fine by me. Either that or I'll mod it. We'll see. The next game that I'm really looking forward to might come to a surprise for some people, but maybe not. Gotham Knights Gotham Knights is a co-op video game that takes place in a different continuity. I believe it's meant to be a different continuity from the Batman Arkham Asylum, like those series of games, where this isn't going to be a spoiler because it's in the trailer. In this continuity, Bruce Wayne has died, and he has called upon some of his fellow Bat Gang friends, Robin, Batgirl, Nightwing, and Red Hood. You pretty much continue on with the legacy that Bruce Wayne left. As you know, one of the things that I enjoy doing in my Let's Plays is finding some good co-op games to play with, like Borderlands, for example, has been a big one in my channel over the last several years. And so I was looking for another co-op game, and I thought that Arkham Knights would fit the bill really well. I'm still deciding on exactly who I would end up Let's Playing this game, co-op Let's Playing this game with. And I probably won't be able to decide that until we get a tighter prediction of when the game is actually going to be released. But hopefully it ends up being a solid game, and hopefully it'll be a really awesome excuse to hang out with some of my buddies to co-op together. Next is a game that's been in beta for a very long time. But it's one that I've been keeping an eye on, and one that I'm hoping ends up being good and well executed. Right now, the reviews are sort of up and down, but I'm still trying to be optimistic. It's called The Waylanders. The Waylanders, although is not made by BioWare, they are heavily inspired and influenced by the BioWare games. It's supposed to be a fantasy adventure, epic adventure. I think you create your own character. Mike Laidlaw, who, as many of you know, has worked with BioWare in the past, is a consultant for the story. There's a whole wide range of characters, companions that you can grow bonds with, perhaps even grow romances with, obviously. So there's many BioWare elements in there. The background is medieval Celtic inspired, which I think is really cool. And a huge element of the story is based on time travel, which I'm a very big fan of. And from what I understand, depending on your choices, decisions, actions, while this time travel element is, a part of the mechanics of the game, obviously it has consequences and effects with the people and the world around you, which I think is really fascinating. But yeah, as I said, it's been in beta for a number of years on Steam, and there isn't a clear indication of when the full game is released yet, because again, due to the pandemic, it's been pushed later and later, but hopefully it'll be released and complete. I don't want them to rush. I want them to release it when it actually is legitimately complete, even if it doesn't happen in 2022. If it doesn't happen until 2024, so be it. But that is another game that I've been deeply invested in and have been keeping an eye on and hoping to be able to Let's Play sometime in the near future. A huge game that has become super popular over the last few years has been Stardew Valley. And I mean, it is an incredible game that has been made with a very small team of people. I almost want to say that it was made by one person, or at least at the beginning it was made by one person, which is ridiculous. But no, Stardew Valley still today is an amazing game, and the people behind Stardew Valley have been developing this other game that is supposed to be more like a Harry Potter Wizarding World version of Stardew Valley. Has been renamed, I think, at least once, but I think now currently the name of the game is called Witchbrook. So my understanding is you create a character, you get accepted into this wizarding school, and what I'm assuming is going to happen is you pretty much have to, your day-to-day, organizing your time between going to classes, probably going to fetch ingredients for potions, learning magic and spells, going into town, meeting the townsfolk or whatever, Hogsmeade or whatever that ends up being for this game, and possibly finding love in the process, in true Stardew Valley fashion. Someone like myself who is a huge Harry Potter fan has been waiting for this game for a very long time, but as usual, I want the developers to take their time and not release this thing until it's ready and actually complete, quote-unquote complete. Although even Stardew Valley, when it was first released, they just kept giving more additions to it, which is fine, but I think the original game was still complete. And they just added more icing to the cake. So hopefully we're going to find more news about Witchbrook and when that gets released in the near future. And speaking of Harry Potter, of course, another game that I am greatly anticipating is Hogwarts Legacy. There were leaks about this game before it was ever officially announced it was going to be a thing, but several people had suggested earlier on that it essentially is a sort of I don't want to say BioWare-esque, but it's basically an RPG where you create a character who is a student at Hogwarts. I think this takes place in the past. I think this takes place before, many years, I think, before the events of Harry Potter and Voldemort and all that good stuff. I'm not sure if it takes place even before the Grindelwald time frame, but all I know is it is BioWare as I said, in which you create your own wizard and or witch, and similar, I guess, to Witchbrook, you go through and take classes and learn spells and magic, and I'm sure there's an overarching story. A lot of people, Harry Potter fans, have been anticipating this game for a while, and though there have been other Harry Potter games that have been released, one of which I'm still playing, Hogwarts Mystery is a big one, and even another mobile Harry Potter game. I forgot the name of it too, but this seems like the big one that many people, I'm hoping, are going to latch onto, because I think even the earlier Harry Potter games that I believe were on the Wii, I think they were on the Wii, were more geared towards a younger audience. So I'm thinking the Hogwarts Legacy one is going to be a little bit more universal and will cater to even older generations as much as the younger generations, but probably more of the older. So looking forward to that. There are a couple of visual novel games, more than a couple of visual novel games that I am also anticipating, because as you all know, that's a huge guilty pleasure of mine. Two of which I actually backed on Kickstarter. One is called Arisen, which is a story that revolves around a card game as part of the game mechanics of going through the story. You basically collect what they call emotion cards, and I think each of the emotion cards, they represent obviously different emotions, but I think they have different powers and abilities. I don't know. It seems very interesting, very intriguing, and of course, you may or may not find love along the way, which is always, for me, an exciting thing. So that seemed like a very unique concept that I just had to back. Another one is called Cooking Companions, which, believe it or not, is a horror visual novel that revolves around cooking. I'm not a big horror person, as many of you know, but I'm a huge cooking person, and based on the art, it looks like it's going to be a very interesting mix. And I don't know, the whole concept seemed really fascinating for me, one that I wasn't sure how much I would really enjoy it, but I was very intrigued and super curious to experience it just to find out how much I would enjoy it. So yeah, that's another game that I backed that I am curious to find out how well they execute and how well I end up liking it. There is a game called Monster Camp, which is a sequel to Monster Prom, which was a super fun co-op visual novel game. The only co-op visual novel game that I knew of, at least at the time. I still don't know of any others, but I played with three other players, and I probably will ask those three to come play again for this one because it was so much fun. Roma and Sam and Eric, we'll see. That would be really nice. But in this one, you are in a summer camp and trying to get whatever you can out of camp, and again, possibly finding love in the process, which will be super cool. Speaking of sequels, Cursed Lands is a game that Hannah recommended to me, Hannah from Dragon Age Season 2, which is supposed to be a sequel to Lauren, the Amazon Princess, one of the best adventure visual novels, probably the best adventure visual novel game that I've played. So I, again, it's been on my list for a while, it's been on my radar, I just haven't had the chance to start playing it, but it is something that I would love to hopefully start playing at some point in 2022 because the first one, Lauren, Amazon Princess, was so good. So yeah, there's that. Arcade Spirits is a game that was recommended to me by Kiwi, who was a player in my Mass Effect Season 2 campaign. It is a game where, you know how in the 1980s the arcades was a big thing. So in this continuity, the whole arcade craze never died out. It's still a huge part of the culture in the 2000s. And so, again, I don't know much about the story other than the fact that it involves video games, especially like arcade video games. And once again, it's a visual novel. You might find love along the way, which is always fun. The last thing I want to mention is not so much a new game that I haven't played before. It's the House of Ashes Curator's Cut. For whatever reason, when I first purchased the game, I did not pre-purchase it before it was released, and because I did not pre-purchase it, I did not have the Curator's Cut available to me even after Shay and I finished Let's Playing that game. But they have historically allowed the Curator's Cut to be available to everyone eventually several months later, which is the cut that I do want to Let's Play as to do my replay of the game, because I'm going to try to save as many people as possible, or at minimum save the people who died the first time that Shay and I played through it. And the Curator's Cut seems to be the one that I really want to experience that with, because historically the Curator's Cut tends to be the storyline that includes most of the scenes that Shay experienced. So that's something that I'm looking forward to, hopefully in the next couple of months, that they'll release the Curator's Cut. There are definitely a whole bunch of other games in my list. There's my document where I keep all of the games on my radar that I remotely want to Let's Play is always changing. There's always titles that shift up and down in priority. So don't think that this is an exhaustive list of games that I'm looking forward to playing in 2022. It's just so happens to be the games that I feel like I have the most I can talk about. But hopefully there are a few games in the list that I talked about today that you all are interested in or excited to experience through me as I'm Let's Playing them, and will be a fun time for all of us. At any rate, thank you so much for watching through this whole video. If you did sit through the whole video, again, please, 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 please help me as much as you can to help brainstorm ideas on how we can celebrate 10 years, our 10-year anniversary on the YouTube channel. Down in the comments below. I would love to hear from you. And also do me a favor and let me know down in the comments which of those games, if any, that I mentioned today you are most interested or excited about, because that may influence the order that I ultimately play them on my channel. Please, I hope that you all have as wonderful and as productive and as stress-free and as healthy and safe as possible 2022 as you remotely can. And until next time, everybody, love yourselves and love each other. So let's talk about some of the upcoming games. Been doing this for 10 years and I'm still flubbing, can't speak, can't talk. Blech. Horror visual novel that has cooking elements in it. For those of you who saw us do another co-op of the game, Okay. I've been doing this for so long, I can do this. Okay.